Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first ever Beyond Limits Summit, coming to you live here in Croke Park, Dublin. My name is Julian Benson.
And my name is Jason Hopkins. We are your hosts for what's going to be an incredible event.
Indeed, Jason, over the past 2 years, the Ombudsman for Children's Office have been working behind the scenes with an outstanding group of disability organisations to create an event that not only showcases the best of Irish talent, but also highlights the exceptional contribution that people with disabilities have made in Irish society.
As part of the process, the OCO has engaged the expertise of university professionals, schools, and most importantly, young people with disabilities to help them to create the content for today's event.
Indeed, Jason, and what an event, folks, we have lined up for you today. Now, before we kick off today's proceedings, I'd like to invite you all now to sit back, relax, turn off those mobile phones, and of course, enjoy the show.
And those watching on RT News or online, welcome.
So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, will you please welcome our opening performance? Dancing to the iconic song, This Is Me, from The Greatest Showman. Will you please give a warm welcome to the Billy Barry Stage School.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious.
Weren't they fantastic, ladies and gentlemen? Absolutely. Box office gold. Jason, weren't they amazing?
Yes, they were.
Absolutely amazing.
It certainly was, Julie. Now it is my honour to introduce our first speaker for today's event. Michael McKillop is a 4-time Paralympic gold medalist. He has represented Ireland at 3 Paralympic Games. That includes Beijing, London and Rio.
Indeed, he is also a 4-time world champion and 2-time European champion in the 800 and 1500 metres. Now, his talk today, he's going to talk to us about growing up as a young person with a disability and how he overcame many obstacles to achieve his phenomenal success.
Please welcome Michael McKillop to the stage.
Love is a verb. Love is a doing word. Feel someone pray.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming along to such an amazing event. I am going to take you on a journey that started for me when I was born with a disability. I am from the northern part of Ireland, but I represent the island of Ireland. I was once branded the greatest Paralympic middle distance athlete ever. But to get to that point, it took a lot of hard work. Let's begin that journey. I was born in a coastal town called Cushendall, just on the north coast of Ireland. And for me, growing up, it took a long time to get to know who I was as a person. I was starved of oxygen at birth. It took until probably a year and 10 months for my parents to build up the courage to bring me back to the hospital. They noticed that I was starting to walk with a limp. They noticed that my hand carriage was quite uptight and locked. They brought me to the hospital, and the doctor just said, "It's a habit. He'll get out of it. It's fine. He's just a little toddler." At that point, my parents were bemused because they were not sure that what they were told was the truth. Another year passed, and they were able to get another consultant's opinion. And my parents always told me they remember the doctor coming out and opening the door and inviting us in. And at 2 years and 10 months, me skipping my way in, walking in and sitting on the chair. And within an instant, the consultant said that I either had cerebral palsy or I had a stroke. Just like that. Not only did my life change, but my parents' life changed. Because being a parent with a child with a disability at that point is probably one of the most heartbreaking things that could ever happen. Because everyone wants a healthy, able-bodied child. As you can see from a couple of images here, apart from my stylish good looks up in the top right with my Mickey Mouse jeans and my check shirt, you can see my hands in that locked position. Until probably the age of about 4 or 5, that's where my hands sat. Through a lot of occupational therapy, speech therapy, physiotherapy, it allowed me to have the use of my right hand slightly more and also not walk as with such a limp. Another photograph here, Christmas time. We're nearly there. I don't know how many sleeps it is to Christmas and Santa coming, but whenever I was there, that was Christmas Eve. And on Christmas Eve, my parents brought us to a park. It was snowing, and we went and we did bobsleigh. As you can see, I have a burnt nose. We went down the hill, and I scooted underneath the car, burnt my nose. That is why you see me in the Summer Paralympic Games, not the Winter Paralympic Games, because I wasn't a very good bobslayer from an early age. The other image here that I have is an Ireland kit. That belonged to my dad. My dad actually represented Ireland at the World Cross Country Championships when he was younger. They have that photograph in their house still. They obviously knew something that I didn't know at that stage. So I give you this quote, and read this quote into yourself. There are two primary choices in life: to accept the conditions as they exist, or accept the responsibility for changing them. Because we look around this room, and there's so many parents here that were in the same situation as my parents. They did not want a disabled child. They wanted the best for them. And it was through hard work, determination, passion, and belief that they gave the opportunity of their child to be as able as possible. Forget about the disabled. It's about the able, the ability to be the best person that you can be. Obviously, growing up with a disability, I stood out. I was physically disabled. And when you're physically disabled, everyone looks at you because you're different. At that young age, going into primary school, I not only struggled with my physical standing out, I struggled with my education. I had learning difficulties when I was a child. I couldn't do the same sums as everybody else. I had smaller sentences, I had smaller sums to do, but once again I stood out because there was the main class sentences and there was Michael Spellings. I felt special, but I don't know if that was a good thing at that time. But the one thing I loved was sport. My parents used sport as my physiotherapy. And with that, it gave me a chance to express myself in the best possible way. I took up athletics. I wanted to follow in the footsteps of my dad. This is an image here of me running at the Northern Ireland and Ulster cross-country championships for primary schools. It didn't matter I had a disability on that day. I was going up against the best kids in Ulster. If I had came across the line fifth and thought to myself, I was the first disabled kid, that's the best thing. No, that's not how I work. If I want to be the best, I want to come first. On that day, I came first. I beat every single person. And as you can see from the image here of my hand going in that locked position, even till this day, that's how my hand sits. I can ask my brain to keep my hand open. It stays open. But I ask my right hand, it goes still in that clawed position. The signal from my brain is still not getting to my right side, and that affects me. The image here of me getting my trophy, I was actually presented by a lady. Does anyone know who that lady is? This lady is very special, especially to Northern Ireland. This lady is called Lady Mary Peters. She won the first ever Olympic gold medal for Northern Ireland at the 1972 Olympic Games. For me, I just thought she was a slightly old lady. I was only 10 years of age, but little did I know how much of an input she was going to have of me in my future career. So I look at that and I think to myself, do something today that your future self will thank you for. Do not allow anyone to tell you something that you cannot do. If you're able enough, you can achieve it, because it comes from here. Yes, it comes from here, but it more comes from here. It comes from the heart. Passion, belief, hunger. And that is where I have been able to showcase my talents. Through a lot of hard work, I've got a team around me. I classify them as Team McKillop. I even have them embroidered into my suit. Because everywhere I go, we're a team. The next hurdle in my life came in 2004. My parents took me to sunny Wales. And when we were in sunny Wales, it was the last night. My parents were having a drink in the caravan. And everyone knows with the caravans, they're quite small. There's 6 people in my family at that time. And it was sunny Wales. And my parents were celebrating the fact that we didn't get kicked off this campsite. There wasn't very many injuries. And they hadn't had very many arguments. And whenever that happened, all of a sudden, they heard a big, massive. They were like, what's that? And they ran in. And they seen that I'd fallen out of bed. But they noticed that my head was in a locked position between the bed and the bedside table. And my body started to move. What could have happened at that stage with my head in that locked position? I could have broken my neck. Could have severed my spinal cord. I remember my parents telling me they got the ambulance and they brought me to the hospital. In the back of the ambulance, I had a second seizure. They rushed me in and they checked my brain. They got a brain scan. And they showed that I have a cyst growing in my brain. A cyst that I will have in my brain for the rest of my life. At the age of 14, my life changed for probably the hardest part of my life because I got diagnosed with epilepsy. And unfortunately, my epilepsy only happens in my sleep. So I now realize that I have to be on medication for the rest of my life. But if I could go to sleep and I might never wake up, I could be 6 feet under. So I not only have to now live with cerebral palsy, speech problems, education, and now have epilepsy. Could someone else not get something? Why does it always have to be me? But I think to myself, actually, do you know what? That's the best thing. Because someone gave me them conditions for a reason. I was meant to have them. Because if it wasn't that, I wouldn't be Michael McKillop. I wouldn't be the person I am today, and I wouldn't be standing on the stage talking to you. So there is, yes, it's a negative, but also positives come out with that. And this for me is 100% the most important thing for everyone to understand in this audience. Yes, life is not easy. Yes, life is not straight road. There's hurdles in that path. And it's being able to find yourself around them hurdles, getting over them hurdles, grabbing through the thorn bushes, and realizing actually when you're out the other side, you realize actually, do you know the path I took? That's the best path because it was my path. No one else's. And that for me is the most important thing. 2006 came and I competed at my first World Championships. As a 16-year-old boy, the image I chose here is me with a gentleman in a yellow suit. He was twice my age at that time. I was going up against men with the same disability as me. I came second in that race, but I felt like I was better. I deserved better because I had trained so hard. I was a 16-year-old boy. I remember stropping. I remember getting my spikes when I came across the line second and threw them down on the ground and goes, this is so not fair. I wanted to win that race. My dad's my coach, and he said, do not dare do that again. Do not disrespect my sport like that. And I was kind of like, I kind of curled up in a wee ball and kind of said, oh, sorry. And he said, you've got 2 days to refocus. You got a world championship final in the 800 meters. 800 meters came, and this image here on the top-hand corner is me in the final. And the gentleman in the yellow and blue is the world champion, world recorder, Paralympic champion. On that day, I won my first world title, age 16. This guy didn't race against me until London 2012. So I obviously pissed him off big time at the fact that he got beaten by a kid. Does anyone know who I am alongside in the bottom image? This guy is called Jason Smith. Not only is he one of my teammates, he's one of my best friends. Since that day, we won our first world titles together. This guy is the fastest Paralympian on this planet. He can run 100 meters in 10.2 seconds. For me, he is an inspiration to me. I learn from him. And this is what life's about, learning from one another. Not every single person is perfect. Everyone has positives and negatives, and this is where we all learn from one another. I went to my first Paralympic Games in 2008, and I ran in front of 91,000 people. With that, I became the first ever person with my disability to break the 2-minute barrier for the 800 meters. I created history. This image here on the right-hand side is me embracing my dad, and you wouldn't believe with 150 meters to go, he shouted, "Run, Michael, run," and I heard it in front of 91,000 people. It wasn't about the arm carriage, it wasn't about the drive the knees. It was his son winning the biggest championships ever. I still get emotional thinking about it today. So I just want to leave you with a quote. If you believe, you will achieve. Do not allow any single person to tell you something that you can do. It comes from here, and it comes from here. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you'll agree, ladies and gentlemen, what an inspirational speaker. Michael, if we could only take a little nugget of his magic, and that quote, believe and you will achieve, is something that I really believe in. So thank you again, Michael. Fantastic speech. So ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to introduce you today to our first young speaker, Grace Murphy. Now Grace is from Dublin, and she's going to speak to us today about growing up as a young woman with a disability.
Please welcome to the stage Grace.
Agus a chorda. My name is Grace Murphy. I'm 17 and I'm a 5th year secondary school student. The first thing that many people notice about me is that I use a wheelchair. Wheelchair users encounter many obstacles in everyday life, and we need to make more detailed plans than other people because the world has not been designed with wheelchairs in mind. But when people get to know me and forget about my wheelchair, they realize that I share many of the needs, hopes, and dreams of other young people. We all need things like love, shelter, and food, but we also want education, social opportunities, and the support to achieve our potential, whatever that may be. Our generation will shape the Ireland of the future, and I'd like us to demolish all the old negative stereotypes and learn to be really inclusive. We need to teach everyone how to accommodate diversity to make room for disabled children in the classroom, in the playground, and in all our activities. We must make sure that no child is left out or forgotten about. It should not be a matter of luck whether we get the services we need or whether we can access the world around us. All children, whether we live in Dublin or in a rural area, should be able to access education, therapy services, SNA supports, and assistive technology. We need accessible modes of transport and universal design so that we can access houses, workplaces, restaurants, hotels, and cinemas, and not just in the front row. When is the last time that any of you who don't use wheelchairs chose to sit in the front row of the cinema? I believe every young person who would benefit from the services of a personal assistant should have one from their early teenage years when they are beginning to become independent. We need the opportunity to become less reliant on our parents and start to access support from other sources so that as young adults we can participate in all areas of life. For example, university campuses in Ireland have fabulous facilities and adapted accommodation for disabled students. But we can only avail of these if we get the necessary support from the government and the HSE. In my case, I will need personal assistant services to help me in the evenings and overnight. At present, I cannot be confident of being granted this support. Like others before me, I will have to apply and argue and hope. It's important for disabled teenagers to be able to plan for life after secondary school, as our able-bodied classmates do. While I'm studying for my Leaving Cert, I'd like to know that if I work hard and get the necessary points, I can look forward to the same experiences as other young people my age. Having a personal assistant to enable me to live in disabled accommodation in college would be the difference between me becoming an independent, highly educated citizen who pays taxes and contributes to my country and simply sitting at home, reliant on family members and carers. Of course, all the supports I mentioned cost money, but when we consider the cost of supporting disabled people, we should remember that the 2016 census told us that 195,263 carers were providing over 6.5 million hours of unpaid care each week. For far too long, the state has been relying on the willingness of family members to meet the needs of disabled family members. But families are changing, and with increasing female participation in the workforce, there are fewer people available to fulfill unpaid caring roles. This makes it even more important for us to invest in helping young disabled people to become as independent as possible. It's time for our society to step up and make sure that all disabled people and our families get the supports we need to have the quality of life that we all deserve.
There are approximately 650,000 disabled people living in Ireland, and we have huge support and goodwill from our families, friends, and the general public. We also have the access to the expertise of organisations like Enable Ireland, the Irish Wheelchair Association, and the Independent Living Movement Ireland. Together we can make this the best country in the world for disabled people to live in. Let's work together to break down walls and build ramps instead. Gurab Mila Mahagwith.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, will you please give your hands one more time for Grace Murphy? Wasn't she absolutely inspirational? A great, great speech. Well done, Grace. Thank you very much for joining us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to move on to our first panel discussion. So we're just going to set up the chairs and get our little session ready. But in the meantime, let me tell you a little bit about the process. So as part of the process, the Ombudsman for Children's Office called on the help and support of a diverse group of young people with disabilities to get their thoughts and ideas as to what they would like us to discuss here on the panel today.
As part of the topic they choose for this particular session includes family, relationships, and community.
So, to discuss these topics in more detail with us, ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome to the stage Shane Finn, Fergus Finlay, and of course, Patricia Messenger. Grab a chair, my friend. Grab a chair, my friend. Oh, you see, she is there for the moment, right? I'll do the standing, sure, why not, says you. It's all of it. So listen, first of all, thank you all so much for joining us here today. And I suppose, let's start the discussion about finding out a little bit about who you are and maybe the work that you do in the area of disability. So if you'd like to kickstart us.
Well, aren't these beautiful chairs? Absolutely.
Aren't they
Much
fabulous?
better than
Oh, listen, we went top dollar here today.
I'll tell you
There was
what,
no holding back.
My name is Fergus Finlay. Years ago, many years ago, I was involved in the campaign to bring the Special Olympic World Games to Ireland. It was the first time it had ever been held outside the United States, and I think many of us will remember it as a fantastic event. I became chair of Special Olympics after that. I'm now chair of an organization called Lakers, which is a club with 400 members, all of them with an intellectual disability in Bray. And it's a fantastic club which is owned and run by its members. They decide what we do in the club. But I think the main reason I'm here is because of my daughter Mandy. Mandy was born with Down syndrome 40-something years ago.
We won't give the age away.
She has already indicated that she intends to celebrate her 50th birthday in New York, apparently at my expense. but we're not quite there yet. We have a couple of years to save. Mandy is a tough, independent, resourceful, willful, stubborn woman who lives independently and who has coped with all of the things that Down syndrome brings with it. The worst of which is the attitudes of other people, and particularly the attitudes of the state. So my wife and I would feel very, very strongly about that. We're very proud of Mandy. We're not quite so proud sometimes of the country she lives in.
But great. Thank you so much. So Shane, maybe you will tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and the great work that you do.
Well, the last time there was a Kerryman in Crow Park, it didn't work out too well for me.
Oh, no, it didn't.
So we'll be back. We'll be back. So my name is Shane Finn.
You're in the company of Dubs.
I know.
Yeah.
Get over it.
Feeling a bit nervous.
Up
to
the
be honest.
Dubs.
So my name is Shane Finn. I'm 27 years old. I'm from the nicest part of Ireland, which is West Kerry, not Kerry, just West Kerry.
That's okay.
So my own background is, I suppose, and like we said, the reason I'm here is probably my first cousin Mary. So my first cousin Mary was born with spina bifida and hydrocephalus. I saw from a relatively young age, in my mid to late teens, that life was very difficult for her. She had other challenges that I didn't have. And out of nowhere, as you do one day, I decided to run a marathon. With no training, and that didn't work out very well for me, unfortunately. But I raised a sum of money for Spina Bifida Hydrocephalus Ireland, and I saw what an effect that had. And no pun intended, I kind of lost the run of myself after that.
Boom, boom.
So in 2014, I ran from Dublin to Dingle, and we raised about 30,000 euros.
Excellent.
And then, I suppose, to give a bit of context, my cousin Mary, her condition slightly worsened a couple of years ago. Just nothing too serious, just other challenges. And I realised that she struggles 24 hours a day. And when I train all the time, but I might struggle for an hour or two. She has to fight every hour of the day, so for 24 hours a day. So I then decided to run 24 marathons in 24 days in 24 counties around Ireland in 2017, representing her and families all over Ireland that are living or are fighting with spina bifida and or hydrocephalus. And that was fantastic. We raised 140 grand. And quickly, straight after that, the charity had their funding cut. And I suppose I was looking for a sign. And my cousin Mary always wanted to go to New York. So maybe we can do a double trip on your
You raise the
expense.
funds. You raise the
There you go. Oh, sure.
I'll be there.
So
We'll do the next one with you.
I was actually in the US at the time when I got the news, and I was like, that's it, that's a sign from somebody somewhere. And I just recently finished cycling and running across the whole continent of America.
Wow.
For SBHI as well. So my connection with my cousin Mary is very close. She's probably one of my closest friends. She's a massive role model to me. And yeah, that's how I've kind of started on this ultra endurance life. So
Absolutely
it's
amazing.
interesting to
Wow.
have.
What a story and a lot of work going on there. Wow,
Yeah,
well
thank
done.
you much.
Absolutely. I mean, it just gets better, ladies and gentlemen. So, Patricia, please tell us all about yourself and your
Can I just say I'm tired just listening?
I know, how do we follow that, says you, Patricia?
I came to the world of disability, slightly unusual route. Back in 1999, I work in radio. I don't know if there's anybody here from Cork. I work in a radio station called C103. And I do a talk show. Great to see the Cork people here. I do a talk show Monday to Friday. And in 1999, I went to Belarus, the country that's most affected by the Chernobyl disaster. And I went out there to do some radio reports. And while out there, I got to visit a lot of orphanages. And I got to see children with disabilities from mild to moderate to severe, living in just atrocious conditions. And I met many, hundreds of children. And one little girl stuck out. She was a little girl who was standing in a corner. And she turned out to be deaf-blind. She was the tiniest little thing. And she stood in the corner because we were giving out sweets to the other kids, and the room got very noisy and people moving around. And she was afraid that someone was going to hit into her. So she had developed this skill to work out where the corner was of the room. And then she would stand facing the corner, so that if somebody bumped into her, she'd only have to fall that much forward. And I just thought, my God, how clever of her to do it. But I realized here was a little girl that nobody loved. There was nobody in this world for her to love or nobody to love her. I thought it was one of the saddest things. And I left the orphanage that day and I wrote on a piece of paper, that little girl will haunt me forever. Little did I know, in 2001, I managed to get that same little girl over to Ireland on a medical visa. We were trying to see if we could help her and some other children. And we fell in love with her, myself and my husband. And in 2004, I stood before a Russian judge along with my husband, and we said why Marcia should be our daughter. And suddenly we became the very proud parents of a little deaf-blind girl who has brought so much joy and happiness to our lives. But I remember that day when I stood in that courthouse, I promised this little girl the sun, moon and stars. And I got her back to Ireland, and we've given her the stars because we live in a very happy house, and she's a blessing to all of us. But I can't give her the sun and the moon because we're left down by the services in this country. I never realized, I knew I'd have to fight Russia to get her, but I never knew that I'd have to fight the system here every single turn, everything I needed for this child. I thought it would be here. I thought they would just pick up the phone and everything would be fine. And it's just endless phone calls, endless. At the time it was letter writing, now it's email. I doorstepped people. It's just so unfair that our children, who are the most vulnerable, they're the ones who can't get out and protest. They're the ones who can't get out and be vocal. Like my daughter is nonverbal. She can't shout for herself. So we as parents have to do it. Yeah. And that's why a day like today is fantastic. And well done to Steve and all of the gang at the Ombudsman for Children for giving us the opportunity to come together and just to shout from the rooftops how proud we are of our children. But give us a break, give us a chance, absolutely. Give our children a chance.
Absolutely. Well done, Patricia, absolutely. Well, we do have some questions for all of you, and I know, Jason, in particular, you had a couple of questions you'd like to ask.
Shane, you do great work. How do you fill it all in?
How do you fit it in, Shane? You're a busy man.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest, it's a struggle. It is a struggle. I've become, I haven't done a PhD or anything like that, but I have a PhD in time management, to be honest, at this stage. I just prioritise myself as best I can. I travel a lot of work. I work for myself. I try to fit in as much charity work as I can, family work, not work, family time, kind of for time with friends. And I think I just prioritise, really. You know, I think we spend a lot of time kind of maybe doing things that we don't need to be really doing. So I prioritise things, you know, my health, my family, and then after that, everything else is secondary. But I try my best to balance it and have a bit of fun along the way. You know, I'm a more leaning towards more the fun side the last couple of years. I should probably like get a real job or something. But yeah, I'll be fine. We'll figure it out. But no, it is tough, and I understand. You know, especially. I find it sometimes amazing how, you know, parents can do what they do. It mind boggles me, really, to be honest, sometimes what people can achieve, and people think I'm busy. I mean, I just have to kind of answer to myself, really, you know. So I suppose I didn't really answer the question, but I didn't.
And you did a great job there, Shane. Don't worry. Again, good time management. That's what I say. Good time management. Patricia, do you mind, could we ask you a little bit more about the process of adopting Marcia and how that happened and what you went through to make that happen?
Well, we did it slightly backwards in that Marcia was living with us and then we had to go through the adoption process. And obviously the adoption process in Ireland is quite tough. You have to do all of the courses, you have to do background checks. As I say, we were doing it backwards. We had the child living with us. Now, it's a tough process, but it has to be. I mean, they're giving you this gorgeous, wonderful little human being. So it has to be a tough process. So we got through it, and at the time when we started doing it in 2002 is when we began the process of adoption. There was quite a waiting list for home studies and to get social workers to come to visit you. But when we went, in fairness to the HSE in the South, and said, look, can we fess up? We have the child living with us. We're trying to do it backwards. They speeded up the process slightly. And then obviously you've got to dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and put a pact together for Russia that has to have seals and stamps and everything has to be perfect. And then we flew to Russia and did it.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
You're an amazing woman, by the
Thank
way.
you.
I just have to say that, isn't she? Wonderful lady. Brilliant, brilliant. Now, I think we have one more question. I know, Jason, that you would like to ask Fergus.
Fergus, I hear you are retired. What do you do with your time?
Well,
what do you do?
For 15 years, I worked in an organisation called Bernardo's, which is an organisation that works with children whose lives are affected by all forms of disadvantage. And one of the things we discovered is we all have hills to climb in our lives. All of us have hills to climb. Not as many as... if you have a disability or if you have other forms of disadvantage in your life, that hill can become a bit like Kilimanjaro or a bit like Mount Everest. Our job in Bernardo's was to help people climb the mountain. We'd sometimes carry the load and help people climb the mountain. Since I've retired, I've discovered that life actually gets busier. I'm involved in half a dozen different things now, and I'm learning and learning and learning. One of the people I learned from, and I'm determined to tell you this story, is my daughter Mandy. Mandy hates being labelled. As far as Mandy's concerned, the only label that matters to her is Mandy. But if you have a disability, labels attached to you, and you're called all sorts of things. And in the old days, it was worse than it is now, but you still get labels. Mandy and her friend, And I'm going to start a campaign about this, okay? Mandy and her friend Anne came to me about a year ago and they said, "We hate being called Down syndrome." And I said, "Why is that, Mandy?" And she said, "Because when people say Down syndrome, they look down.
Oh.
And when they say Down syndrome to us, they look down at us." And I said, "Well, can't you just be Mandy?" And she said, "No, we want a different label." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "We want Up syndrome." So that when people say Up syndrome, they will look up. So I'm going to start a campaign to change.
Well done, that's it. We are loving that. Absolutely. Well, listen, you know what? Can I just say to the three of you, it's so inspiring listening to your stories. The amount of work each and every one of you do in the area of disability. And it just goes to show the kindness of Irish people and people in general. You know, we need people like you to be out there, to fly the flag genuinely in all areas of disability, to try and show the world it's not about disability, it's about ability and believing in ourselves and the power that you can achieve anything. So thank you so much for joining us here today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Please give them a huge round of applause for taking up the time, because they were absolutely fantastic. Well done. So as always, folks, we could have spoken forever, but we have to move on. So, Jason?
Now, to finish the first session, we thought it would be...
See, she's your grand, you can sit there. No, Jason, got a little bit of movement, you know yourself. There you go. So to finish up, who have we got, Jason?
So now to finish up with the first session, we thought it would be good to have a bit of humour.
Oh, sure, listen, it's always good to have a bit of crack, Jason, isn't it? God bless you.
Do you have any funny jokes, Julian?
I hear that, Jason. Jokes. Now come on. I know my limitations, my friend. But I do know one lady who does. Well, this lady, Tanya Lee Davis, is a 3-foot, 6-inch stand-up comedian. She has traveled the world, ladies and gentlemen. She has performed at comedy festivals throughout North America, the UK, wherever she goes, she enlightens, she entertains, she puts that razzmatazz into her performance. We're absolutely delighted that she's joined us here today. So will you please give a real big, warm welcome to Tanya Lee Davis.
Was seamless. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. Were you expecting this? No. Put your phones away. I'm not a Pokemon. I love coming overseas because you people are uptight. Oh, I can feel the tension. You're not sure if you should laugh. You might go to hell. Yeah, you will. It's okay. It's a natural human reaction to be uptight. I'm totally fine with it. In fact, I like the tension. I like when people are physically uptight. It gets me excited. I'm like, that's right, look at me. Yeah, check out the boobs on the 5-year-old. I love to. And as you can tell, I'm different. I'm also Canadian. Yeah, I'm also what you guys call mixed race. That's true. That's right. I'm a white girl. I'm a black girl. I love people's reactions, especially kids. You know, we got some kids here. Kids freak out when they see me. Very honest, very upfront in their reaction, the kids. You know, some kids come up to me and they're like, hey, what happened to you? Did you get into an accident? I'm like, hell no, I didn't eat my vegetables when I was your age, you little turd. Now put me down. This is what I get to do for a living. It's a pretty cool job. Usually it's after 9 p.m., so this is fun. I'm doing a lot of editing in my head right now. Yeah, I get to travel. It's great. You're going to notice, I'm going to educate you a little bit because I am a little person. I'm 3'6", but I use the word midget. A lot of people don't realize the term midget is actually considered quite offensive, you know, a bad word amongst the little people community. I don't mind. I know it's all about context. I understand that most people assume that I'm midget, but you also assume I got to have midget friends. Oh, like there's packs of us hanging around together. Little scooter gangs of midgets just touring the city. Woo! Power to the pygmies. Actually, one of the coolest times I ever had was with another little person, because one night we got really drunk on cough syrup. Woo! And we'd go down to the town park. We'd hang out amongst the flowers and pretend we're garden gnomes. And we'd freak out old people. Boo! Oh, and then we'd laugh and dance and play our little flutes. Because that's what we do. You gotta be a people person to do this job, and I like people. You know, and I get people are curious about my life. That's why I talk about all the crazy antics that I get into. And I don't mind questions. If you want to come chat later, feel free. Probably the most common question I get asked is if I have any children. People wonder if I can carry any kids. And I don't have any kids, but I could. I just don't want the little buggers. That's right. Yeah. I don't need to have kids. All my friends have kids that travel for a living, get to stay in their houses and their flats and play with their kids. And not being a parent, I had no idea how many baby proofing gadgets they have on the market. You familiar with the baby proofing? There's some cool stuff, you know, unless you've got a dwarf house guest. Holy crap, I couldn't get out of the living room. There was gates everywhere. It was totally trapped. I got to poop. Tried to reach up for the door handle of the loo. It was far too high to lift the kid up on my shoulder. Come on, you get it, teamwork. I'm just saying, it's embarrassing when you have to stay at your friend's house. You have to take a poop in the cat box. So I get to travel all around the world doing this job. It's been an amazing couple of years. I got to do a tour in Japan. That was exciting. I'm huge in Japan. I was actually in Japan. I was doing a tour of U.S. Marine bases. And when you are in Japan, you are on a U.S. Marine base, you are considered on U.S. soil. So you pay with American money. There's McDonald's, KFC, the whole shebang. I'm like, I came all the way to Japan. I want to see some Japanese stuff, right? So they're like, well, you can go off the base. So I used my mobility scooter. That's my car. And I grab my passport, I head off the base, go have some sushi, get to see the sights, and I come back on the base, but the pavement is not wheelchair or scooter accessible. So I have to queue up behind the military vehicles. So now I am 4 tanks deep, sitting on my mobility scooter. The tank in front of me moves forward, and I pull up with this guy holding some serious heavy artillery, and he's just looking at me like, holy shit. I'm like, I'm here to fight the war. Bing, 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 beep, beep. The last time I was in Ireland, I got to do something on my bucket list, which was very exciting. I went on a hot air balloon ride, and I've seen hot air balloon rides from a distance, right? But when you're underneath them, very exciting. You know, I had the most spectacular view of the inside of a basket. Shoot, 200 quid, you said. Are we in the air? Fabulous. Love to travel. I was in Australia a couple of years ago now. If you haven't been there, I recommend it. People will warn you if you're headed to Australia. Be careful. There's a lot of big poisonous spiders, and there are. I'm just a little ticked off that nobody told me about the reptiles. Because there I was. I had my backpack on. I'm trudging through the rainforest, and a goanna ran across my path. If you don't know what a goanna is, it's a big lizard. Yes, they grow up to 6 feet long. They have razor sharp teeth and claws, and they prey on birds, snakes, and small mammals. I had a Jurassic Park moment. I was like, holy crap, thank God I've got arms like a T-Rex. Because it's going down. And it was a big one, too. It was a 6-footer. And goannas are very aggressive. So I was coming down the path. It turned, started coming at me, started charging me, freaking me out. It's like, oh my God, he's going to try and rape me. Oh, it's all right. It turns out he had a reptile dysfunction. It's my favorite joke. I think my favorite part about traveling is staying in hotels. I love hotels because other people clean up after you. It's wonderful. The one thing I don't like, and this is international, I don't like when the maids make the bed. You know what I'm talking about? Can they put the sheets, the duvet, any tighter on the mattress? Is this really necessary? They got a staple gun, some super glue. I come in from a show, I'm tired, I'm drunk, I just want to go night-night, try to pull the sheets back, I got to put my legs up against the wall. Finally slide in there, I feel like I'm sleeping in an envelope. I'm just waiting for somebody to stamp me. Yeah. And I see a lot of travel lodges. I find them quite reliable for accessibility. I'm sure many of you have stayed in disabled rooms. In the UK, they have them red emergency cords that hang throughout the room. And when I'm in the shower, I sit on my step stool. So the other day, I was in the shower, bent over to grab my shampoo, and when I sat back up, a red cord got lodged in my ass crack. I'm like, ooh, my butt's never been cleaner. It was alarming. This is great. So I'm getting old. I feel like there's a lot of young people here, and I'm feeling kind of old now. Got a birthday next month. It's, getting old. I don't feel old. That's the thing. I'm in my late 40s, and hopefully I don't look my age, because clearly I don't act my age, but your body does tell you different. Like I've worn glasses since I was a young kid, and I'm far-sighted. You'd think I'd be short-sighted. Obviously, the lenses correct the vision impairment. But the other night, I'm in bed, I'm reading my book, and it dawned on me I'm at that age where I have to hold my book further and further away from my face. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm farsighted, and I've got midget arms. You kidding me? Like now when I read my book, I got to put it on the ground, spit on my toe to turn the pages. I am 50 shades of horny. It's crazy. I also know I'm getting older because I'm getting pubic hair growing out of my chin. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about? I see some loss of recognition. You know what I'm talking about. We don't get a memo, nothing. Wake up one morning, look like a goat. Stressful. Bitching my best friend about the chin hair. She's like, maybe you should try the waxing for the hair removal. So there we were. We were in Vegas, going to have a girls' day at the spa. We're going to pamper ourselves. I'm going to get my chin waxed. It's going to be glorious. Then she springs on me. Guess what? Signed us up for bikini waxes. It'll make you feel sexy. The bikini wax. She must have seen the look of horror on my face, because she was like, no, don't worry. It will only sting for a little bit. She didn't tell me what happens when that stuff starts to grow back. And I can't really reach my coochie. So there I am, scooting across the carpet. My dog's looking at me. That doesn't feel so bad, does it? Uh-oh. One time I scooted across a nylon carpet. I was stuck to the wall for 3 days. I'm stunned. People do crazy shit to themselves in the name of cosmetics, like Botox. We've all heard about Botox, right? Botox stands for botulism toxin. Botulism is high-grade food poisoning. But they found out if you inject this stuff into your face, it paralyzes the nerve endings, but it gets rid of wrinkles. Yippee! Sounds like a great idea. What they don't tell you is you end up drooling for months. It's like, holy shit, look at me, I'm a sexy bitch. I have never looked younger. It's fun. It's crazy. So I went to my first Little People convention. We do hang out in packs once a year. There's an organization in America called the LPA, the Little People of America. Here, well, actually in the UK, it's called the RGA, the Restricted Growth Association. Crazy. So every year there's a national conference somewhere around North America, and a couple of years ago it was in Boston, Massachusetts. So I've always wanted to go to Boston. So I went there. I went by myself, and I walked into the hotel reception, and I had a panic attack. I went up to my room. I called my friends back home. I'm like, you got to come. They're everywhere. There was 2,500 little people running around. It completely freaked me out. And most of us were staying on the 4th floor of this hotel. And I figured out why, because nobody could reach the 5th floor button in the lift. I don't know if you can relate to that. 2,500 people that look like you was very overwhelming. I was having a panic attack, like I said. And to heighten my anxiety, there was a Jehovah Witness convention at the same time. Do you get the Jehovah's here in Ireland? Yeah, party animals. No. So there I am, I'm drunk, I'm 6 o'clock in the morning, start going around, banging on the Jehovah Witnesses' door. 6 o'clock in the morning. I swear to God, all you could hear was, I can't see anybody. Yeah. And then I dance every night too. I like to shake my booty. I think the DJ was messing with us because every night he played YMCA by the Village People. I know, picture 2,500 dwarves doing YMCA lowercase. Every time we did the M, it looked like we were doing the butterfly stroke. Oh, I had an incident the other day. I was on my scooter. I was at the shopping mall, and I bought some cute tops. Oh, yes, I did. I paid for my tops, too, and I hooked my purchases on the handlebars of my scooter, and I exited the store. And as I exited, I went through the security alarm, and it went off. Sometimes that happens with my mobility scooter. I know I paid for my purchases, so I headed off through the mall, and a couple of minutes later, I hear footsteps and a bit of shouting, and I stop, and my sales lady comes running in front of my scooter like this, and I went, but you know I paid for my stuff. She said, I know you did, but turn around. Apparently, I had caught an entire rack of clothing on the back of my scooter, and I was dragging it through the shopping mall. Oh, I'm like, that is awesome, man. Why couldn't that happen at Ann Summers? Darn it. I love shopping, too, but, I found some stuff I liked the other day. I go into the fitting room, close the fitting room door, and where does the bottom of the door come to? Here. There I am, got my big white bootay hanging out to all the customers. Hey, my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. Do you guys have Primark out here? Do you guys do Primark? Yeah, that's a great store. I love that store because everybody throws everything on the floor. It makes my life so much easier. We're like, woo! Wee! Well, this is great. You guys are fantastic. And I live in Norwich, England. Now, I'm from Canada originally. I've been living in the UK for 3 years, but I've been working there for 16 years. The reason why I moved to the middle of nowhere, Norwich, is because I'm actually on the board of directors of an anti-bullying campaign called Great As You Are. That's GR number 8, As You Are, text speech. So if anybody, and we have a lot of young people and a lot of people in the education system, our program is going to be going national in the UK, but it's fantastic if you want to check it out. Also, I am sort of the lead, I guess, of the Scooter Girl campaign. If you want to go down the rabbit hole of the internet and check out Ginger Dwarf and Mobility Scooters, you'll be there for days because I've had a lot of issues on the trains because trains are not considered wheelchairs in the UK, so people like me get discriminated quite a bit. So I've had some rather public incidents that have now kind of gone viral. So if you want to check that out, show some support, that would be amazing. Before I go, I do talk about body image in my show, and I do believe in this day and age everybody can be sexy. You just gotta find it and bring it out, pull it out, whip it up, buff it, spray paint it orange if you're British. I feel slightly deceptive because I know I got big boobs for somebody my size. It's just an illusion. It's good news, ladies. I got a bra that's out on the market that actually gathers the fat from your back and pushes it all forward. This is what back fat looks like, fellas. Yeah, I'm telling you, it works too because this tattoo used to be on my shoulder. Thanks a lot, you guys. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. I'm Tanya Leaders. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please give it up one more time? Tanya Lee Davis. OMG. Fantastic. I'm telling you, Jace, I learned things in that moment that I never knew existed or believed. But listen, it's great to have a laugh in the morning, isn't it, folks? It's good. Well done, Tanya. Thank you so much. Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Unfortunately, we have come to the end of our first session here at the Beyond Limits Summit. I'd like to take Now it's the time to thank all our amazing speakers, our entertainers, our performers, and of course you guys for joining us here today. We really appreciate you being here. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope we'll see, great, I'd like to hear that. And I hope we'll see you all here again. So always remember, there are no limits, only possibilities. So for myself, Julian Benson, and my co-host, Jason Hopkins, goodbye, God bless, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.